Welcome everyone to the Verified Release UX bi-weekly meeting. I just want to start with a few quick notes. Well, they're read-only, but hey, especially second one is important. Due to the topic we discussed just now in the beginning outside of the recording, I just wanted to highlight the message from C that he shared in one of the channels recently. Just want to make sure that everyone remembers to take care first on themselves. I see like lately we talk a lot with people how easy it's to stay more behind a computer and spend more time with work, kind of like not noticing that. I like to remind everyone, like, hey, stop working late hours if anyone does, and make sure that you find a hobby or something outside of the work so that, like, don't open Slack at night and things like that. We don't appreciate that. So I just wanted to reinforce it here again. And I linked the message of Seed. Whoever wants to go and leave a comment or see what other people said, feel free, but just thought it's important to reinforce it here. All righty, let's jump into the discussion items. And the agenda today is a little bit empty, but hey, let me start from the first point. Any updates from any of the stage groups? I don't know, anything interesting, any topics, any problems maybe that we want to localize or discuss?
Since Tyon isn't here, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Jackie. I'll talk after you.
Since Tyon isn't here, I'll voice over something that we talked about with the analytics team. We had a meeting with Nick Post and John Mason to talk a little bit about not only the features that we're looking to deploy in the next couple of milestones around a CI/CD dashboard, but think about the pajamas components that need to be built in order to help build that foundation for more compelling analytics across GitLab. But we ran into a snafu in that we realized there's like 10 other product managers working on analytics and creating their own dashboard for their own feature. So eventually it's going to get very sprawling, and these different user journeys are going to get very confused as they try to find information about meaningful metrics. So we may want to work in our ops section to think about how can we be more concerted about the user experience for dashboards and metrics and what it means to create actionability from dashboards.
I see. I know that there is quite some history on that discussion started by Shane, one of the previous, I think, dev managers. I'm aware that there are a lot of stage groups who are working around that. Like, what's your next action? And like, how you said it probably works for us in ops section to talk about that. How do we want to be more consistent, or what's the approach? Are you planning already any actions or that's a part of this?
So I think I'll bring it up in the next Think Big. So we have our next Think Big session across our stage, which we already have other topics on the agenda for. So I think I'll do I'll create an issue and land it in the Think Big conversation, and we'll kind of do a plug in our next meeting. And then maybe we can asynchronously discuss this concept in that issue. And then be more concerted about it in our following Think Big cross-section meeting. I think that'll be a really great way to kind of influence how do we choose to create flows for users from analytics. So I think what's the problem today is that people are only looking at this one micro experience in their persona's journey. And they're only thinking about, okay, I want them to see test data in a dashboard, but they're not understanding like that developer is probably going to get to that analytics from like a pipeline, from like a failed job. So what does that mean when they go to that dashboard? What other information are they going to want to see? And it's and we don't have a lot of great cross-linking today, so we can iterate on that in that issue asynchronously. I think the biggest problem as a product manager is I can only influence so much other people's strategy and other people's visions. So we have to be very thoughtful about, as a group, like, how do we contribute to a single journey or path for analytics? Because otherwise, no matter what we build out in analytics, if it doesn't create a single thread, people won't use them. Like, look at the environments dashboard. People aren't using it because they're like, I don't know what to do with this. I don't even know how to find it sometimes.
Yeah, thanks
So
for
pretty much it. Go ahead.
I was gonna say that I think that I don't remember when we talk about this, but I think I have heard this in the past, and it's a sentiment that I keep hearing in conversations, is the idea that, because we also have a lot of stake on dashboards when it comes to testing. We just added one new dashboard, which is the test coverage dashboard. And I think one problem is that when we put all these analytics like in just one view where people have to go and find them, people don't use them because like that means that they have to go to and proactively look at that and basically find that data, you know. So I have heard in the past like this sentiment of dissolving those dashboard views and putting the dashboards or like the actual graphs in context in the views where they are needed. So one example is like for us, for instance, when you do testing and you go to the test tab in a pipeline, we could have that graph coverage dashboard at the top of that view, right? So when you're seeing all your tests, you're also seeing your coverage data, you know. So that's just one idea, and we might need we might want to talk about that on our Think Big, but I think that could be a potential area to explore, like just dissolving those views completely and just using the graphs itself in context when they are needed.
Yeah, I actually see that Hayana added the direction level CI/CD group dashboard. Is that the topic, Jackie? It's already in the agenda for the next week's Crossstage CI/CD.
Yeah, that will be the feature we're delivering, but and that could be a great like jumping off point about how do we want to be more concerted about metrics and CI/CD. That dashboard will be like a really lean MVC for the executive persona that is interested in learning more about all the actions of CI/CD inside their projects. And hopefully that becomes the dashboard that then the director would link into specific project metrics. It's like, how can we be more thoughtful in the ops section about where we want to take people so that they go from that dashboard as a director and executive, or they tell their person below them, their manager, their teammate, hey, I see this thing in my dashboard, can you go check it out? And then they can go click into it and are taken to whatever's meaningful for that project or that persona. I'm not as well versed about all of the personas, like the quality or the applications engineer or the platform engineer, and what they would be told to do from their director. And that's kind of where the second and third iterations of that feature will need to be concerted.
I see, great. But as you said, it's probably going to be a nice trigger for this discussion in general. So I think it definitely worth including other PMs as well, because there's like awareness, cross-functional and cross-stage. So yeah, I think it's a great topic to bring up next week then. And yeah, maybe we should then save time on discussing it here. Otherwise, you think that we can find some solutions right now or talk about anything around that right now on this call? Awesome. Okay. Yeah, Juan, your point was also good. So it's great. I hope you're joining next week. Cross Think Big.
I will. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's continue discussing there. Awesome, because that's important. Any other topics? I think Juan, you wanted to say something also in the beginning.
Yeah. I know. I was just gonna mention that on Monday we have sync up regarding MR widgets. I think the just to set direction for what we're gonna do with MR widgets, or kind of like get a high level update on what are the needs right now for MR widgets, impacts it impacts me. I think it impacts other people on this section as well. So I invited, I invited Hayana. I think Nadia, you are there, but if anyone else wants to be there, please just let me know and I'll send you the invite.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, I'm there. I'm going to be partially off on Monday, but I think I'm going to join that meeting and also a few others. So yeah, very interesting.
It's very short, so yeah.
Cool. Anything else before we're going to move on to the next point? All right, so let me jump in with a question that was born from my discussion with Marcel, actually, and I know it's great, Jackie, that we have you here today because I think you're going to be having some answers for this one. Marcel was showing me how they're using the Periscope data, like the quantitative metrics, like telemetry, I don't know how you properly say that, for like building up some features in Create. Especially he was showing me example like how they measure the data for Web ID usage. And I was just curious, and I want that we touched this with you a little bit already in our one-on-ones, but I was curious, like, do we use that in our stages in the verify and release? And like curious to what extent, how much time does it take for us to implement the telemetry measurements? Anyone has any information?
Yeah, so we use Periscope for our Northstar metric that we just recently established, which was count of deployments by unique user. And then in the future, it'll just be count of deployments. As far as instrumentation for telemetry, when our team does it by ourselves, it was like a big one-time bulk thing. And I think it took like 2 milestones to instrument. And then today's process, you submit a ticket to the telemetry team, and then they implement what you're looking for. And then I think the data team has to, you submit another ticket to the data team, and then they build the Periscope dashboard after it's instrumented. It's not an elegant process, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. And I see it sounds like we're using that only for the Northstar metrics, because I addressed this question to James as well. And he also was mentioning, there was like a comment, I didn't talk to him, and he also mentioned about the Northstar metrics. So is that, Jackie, is that like a process that PMs have for the Northstar metric only tracking?
Yeah, so Gila is driving from the growth team, the director of growth is driving this Northstar project. And she is in charge of creating, I guess, like the training program and the ethos for it. And then each of the product managers are responsible for then building out their own like Northstar metrics. So it's been a discussion ongoing on the product side.
I see. And a question to the product designers, do we think like using quantitative data going to be helping us in the, making better decisions? Curious, like, what are your thoughts? How important is that to have it like in day-to-day life? Yeah.
I'll let Mike go first.
It's a little interesting, and I don't know, a lot of our stuff is new, kind of like feature flags seems to be the example I always use for everything, right? Like we have low adoption of that right now. So right now, kind of useless, because the Periscope data would be, basically a flat line, which doesn't really tell us anything. But I think it would be useful to get in front of that now, right? Like, so we're introducing new features. We hope we uptick in adoption. A way to track that and see, what levels people are upticking, make sure we're on the right track would be interesting. But are we currently using it now? It's not something that I've been actively looking at all. I'm not aware of anything, honestly, in the progressive delivery side that we're tracking. Not to say that we're not, I'm just not aware of it. But something that, data is always useful, right? The more data we have, the better decisions we can make. It is also, though, a little slightly, right, like difficult because a lot of our stuff is non-UI-ish, right? Like your YAML file is defined how it is, right? Like getting telemetry data on things like that is almost impossible, right? So a lot of our stuff is kind of a set it and forget it. There is no like UI associated with it. So it is challenging. And then the other question I always have whenever we talk about telemetry data is the self-managed stuff, right? Like it's always such a weird, like we can get data, but it's from like the small subset usually, not from our core base of users, which is the self-managed. So it's always a little interesting that, you know, sometimes this data is almost dangerous in the sense that it's not our core user base sometimes. So I don't know if we've been able to solve that problem in other areas, and we are getting it from the self-managed folks, but you know, that always has to be considered.
Lori, do you know if our researchers are like paying attention to any of that, or like curious what's your attitude to that kind of data?
I'm sorry, I wasn't listening.
No worries, no worries.
I'm going to be honest. Tell me it in a nutshell and I will give you an answer.
No worries. Quickly, that was about the Periscope data, like telemetrics.
Oh, yeah.
I'm curious if our researchers are, you know, like taking that into account, you know, just, yeah.
I don't think we haven't mentioned it in our team meetings. Now, Jeff might be looking at it, but I haven't heard of anybody else using it at all. The last thing I had heard was that there wasn't much there, but they were working on getting more. And then we had the whole kerfuffle in October. And then Sarah basically told us that kind of set us getting any metrics back like a year or two. So I know I haven't pushed for anything because I just assume there's nothing there to look at.
Okay, cool. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah, it was just my interest, like how are we dealing with that? All right. Anyway, if I'll find anything interesting on that, or you know, if I'll find any interesting use cases, I'll bring that back. Just was out of my curiosity. All right. The next point was brought up by Dimitri in our UX Slack channel, and I just wanted to bring it also here because I don't think the discussion kind of like flew there. I was curious to hear everyone's opinion on using one of the weekly design review sessions in the month for like kind of like a milestone kickoff meeting. Like, I guess it was too bad we don't have Dimitri to open up on that idea a bit more, but I think it was related to one of those sessions that we earlier had as a UX team. Remember when like every designer would pick one exciting issue that he or she would be working in the milestone, and that way we would be keeping each other up to date, like what's the work upcoming, and like discussing the dependencies, etc. Anyone remembers that, and like what are your opinions on this question? And some of others here in the comments, so feel free to drop some comments actually here.
Can I ask one question that I don't mean to derail the conversation or embarrass you, but it auto-corrected to eBay. What was eBay supposed to be? Because I seriously doubt eBay. Right where your cursor is above that, what is the eBay timing for this? What is that word supposed to be? I can't get past it.
So what was that? Sorry, like I totally didn't get what you're saying.
Right here, it says eBay, which I don't. What is that word supposed to be? It obviously corrected. It was either a typo.
Best. Sorry.
Interesting. Okay.
What is the eBay
Cover?
You're the eBay.
I was thinking if it's eBay, I think the metrics are pretty clear on that. You always want to list on Tuesday about 7 o'clock. You always get better results if that's when your auction ends. So Tuesday at 7 o'clock is the answer to that.
I really feel like we should just start renaming everything that's best eBay. That will just be...
I was like, what the hell are you talking about? email. Sorry, yeah, well, hey, you know, this is like my fast typing like, I'm so horrible with writing, especially English grammar. I'm like, oh.
Well, I mean, it's the danger of autocorrect, right?
Yeah.
I do like it, and I don't know if this is something we're doing or some plugin I have on my computer, but like I've noticed in issues now when you type and it autocorrects something, it leaves it underlined.
Oh.
It says like, you know, did you mean to do that?
Yeah.
So you know that it did autocorrect, which for me, who is the king of being an awful typist, happens pretty much like 9 times a sentence. If I have a 10-word sentence, 9 of those are underlined. But getting back on topic, I do like I mean, obviously I have little stake in this, given the fact that it's not going to affect me, but I do think that was always a nice thing in the UX showcase, or in the UX call, which is obviously scaled too big to allow that to happen. So it would be nice to have it at the group level, because I think we're seeing a trend of both what Jackie brought up, but it seems to be like a underlying topic of this. So the more we as a stage group can talk and collaborate, and that's a great avenue for that. But I also agree with the first point that was kind of brought up there, that it's like, what are we kicking off, right? Like, because if we talked about progressive delivery and I told you what we were working on in this milestone, like that's stuff that happened months ago, right? Because we've built up a little bit of a backlog. So it would be interesting to see, like, what does a milestone really mean? What's getting built, or what are you designing, you know, like, and
Well,
maybe
what do you
that's,
think is best here?
I honestly think it's like what you're working on would be better than what's being built, because hopefully what's being built has been designed and, you know, there isn't anything active on it. So knowing, you know, if I was to say, hey, Juan, I'm working, or this thing's getting built, and he's like, oh, I have a great point that would help you out here. And it's like, oh, well, the design's already done for that. It's too late, right? It would be better to know that 2 months in advance when I'm actually working on it, as opposed to when it's being built. So I would suggest that it is what the designers are working on.
That's a great point, because I think there has been always that a little bit of we conflate a lot the development milestones with the design milestones. I mean, we don't. I mean, like, we actually, as designers, we probably are very clear about that, but sometimes people are talking about a feature and it's like, oh, is that feature going to be developed on 13.0 or is it going to be designed on 13.0, right? So for us, there's always that, it makes perfect sense that, like, what you were saying to me, because, like, we definitely have the mix of those two things, you know? So if the goal is to discuss the things that we're going to be designing on that milestone, I think this makes a lot of sense. However, one thing that I wanted to bring up about this is, like, is the idea to talk about absolutely everything that we have on our groups, or it's the idea to do it in the same way that we used to do it in the UX call, which was like, here's what I'm excited about, these milestone, you know, and then you just talk about it.
I would leave the stage here to you, like you guys, like, and also would be curious what Dimitri and Hayana think. Yeah, I think you are the best to judge here, and basically my job is to make this happen.
I think it's a good structure. We have that Crossstage section in here, right? We've identified that that's something we want to talk about. To me, it's a good structure to have that, right? Like once a month, that is the structure of the Crossstage section. So yeah, maybe not everything, but like focused on things that could potentially be Crossstage. So kind of a kickoff of maybe like quickly everything, and then like, but I also think maybe this might have impact, right? So you get the shotgun approach. If it's something that you didn't know would impact somebody, someone might pop up and say, wait, that actually might affect my area. But then like more focused on that. I think this will probably, you know, like merge requests, right? I'm touching merge requests. Like, oh, we know that's a hot button, or variables, we know that's a hot button.
Yeah, I think maybe we could try with like, yeah, yeah, maybe quickly everything like you said, and then stopping on the interesting points. We are for some time we are shrinking as a UX team for a verifying release to 3 people until June, and then we're going to be 4, so it's also not that many people, I guess. So it probably would be easy to talk. We could give this a try. And then another of my questions was like, what is the timing that, like, what is that session that I should tweak for that? Is it like around 18th, 20th where like the release is happening, or like, what do you think?
Yes, that's the date. I was gonna say that we also should, I think that's the date that we should use for sure, like before the milestone starts. And we probably should just like call it like milestone UX kickoff or something, you know, just for clarity. And I think the other thing that I was gonna say is that it will be more efficient if we do it the way that we used to do it on the call, on the UX call, which is that we had a board with all the members of the UX team, and then you can see all their issues, right? And in that call, people will pick the one that they were excited about, but you could still see everything else that they were working on, right? So because we're gonna be small, we can just probably have it. I think the board makes sense. So I think that that should be the mechanism to use for these.
We had a board, the one that you highlighted earlier, Juan, that was a bit outdated right now, but I can update that so it includes the current members.
Okay.
I'll do it. Yeah. Okay. That sounds good. Thanks everyone for ideas. I'll try to change that, and of course I'll set up like a retrospective to have after that, like to see if that's useful, what do we want to change, etc. Okay, I'm gonna shut up right now and like open up space for any other topics, maybe on the UX, on the user research floor. I don't know, maybe you wanna announce something on Crossstage, anything else. I'll just keep it quiet for a bit.
Well, as you guys know, Emily is having trouble recruiting with the virus going around. So I am partnering with her on the AWS recruit for Orit's section to find people. And we're going to see if userinterviews.com will help us get people faster. So far, I have 4 people scheduled next week. They look good. Hopefully they are going to be good. And so I'll continue to work with Emily to let her know my experience with those users. And if it turns out that this is another viable option for recruiting, she's going to also add that to our toolkit. So she will probably know more at the end of the next week. They're all slated for next week. So there's that. We are actively interviewing for 2 more researchers, one to replace Eileen who left, and another one to help Catherine out in her stage group. And we're also interviewing for a senior manager / director of UX research. I'm unclear if this is the same person or if it's going to be like dependent on who the person is who comes to the interview. Like I have a question out to Rupert and Kiki to see what the deal is. So we're starting that process because, as you guys know, Sarah is going on maternity leave in June, and she really wants to have that person in place to have us have some leadership while she's out. So that's happening. Yeah. Oh, and I have been using the time this week to learn more about our category maturity scorecard process. I talked with Christy earlier this week, and we both agreed that it would be good to do some research on our research process. And so I've concluded all my conversations with designers and PMs this week who are either in the middle of the process, planning to do the process, or have gone through the process. And I'm going to look at my data and meet with Christy and let her know what I learned and let her kind of guide me as to what she wants to do with it. Cliff Note versions is we had an OKR to do this. It doesn't really actually apply to everybody because it's not supposed to be used until you get at least to the viable stage. So if you're trying to move from minimal to viable, that is upon Sid's direction, dog fooding. So we need to dog food that feature or that function enough to say, okay, it's minimal. Then once it reaches minimal stage, we can then pull out the scorecard and use it at the right time. What is the right time? No one knows. And the other piece is that everybody's getting really pressured into using the scorecard. And I've just been trying to tell people, don't pressure yourself. Going back to what you said, Nadia, at the beginning of this, Sid, it's like, focus on yourself, focus on your family. It's okay if this particular OKR slips. The company's already said, we're probably not going to meet this OKR this time around. That's okay. So give you guys some leeway, forgive yourself for not achieving this one at this point. And there's some other finer points about jobs to be done, needing to verify and validate those jobs to be done before you move into doing the scorecard. So some stuff is missing, I think, in order to support that scorecard process. So I'm going to talk with Christy about that early next week and see where she'd like to take it. I'd love to see a group conversation about it at our weekly UX meeting, but I'll let her make that call, because some of it I think is higher up discussion too. So that's what I've been up to.
Thanks, Lori. I think, yeah, especially about the maturity scorecards, I had a lot of questions around this process, and it's great to hear we are looking into that. Yeah, and I guess this is a nice heads up for everyone, also on the team who has any experience with that already. Yeah, let's get together and see how we could help Lori. We'll be following up on this, Lori, with you. I would be curious to hear where we are arriving with that.
Oh, yeah. Jackie, did you have something to say?
Oh yeah, I turned myself off on mute and now I'm like moving around and jerking off.
That's okay.
I just wanted to let you know that if Ori needs people for research stuff, I have lots of interviews scheduled already with customers, and it's weird because we're in the same stage and I'm just kind of learning about this right now. So please, I have shit 12 people scheduled between today and next Friday.
Okay.
And I can tell you at least 40% of those are deploying to AWS.
Nice. Well, I'll let you know. If my people suck, I'll let you know. And then maybe I can get in on some of your interviews.
And if you could send me her discussion guide or way I can just ask their questions as well and do the interviewing.
Yeah, totally. Yep, let me find it.
Cool.
Okay, cool. So the next item was from Hayana on the book clubs, but I do not know what is that about. This link I actually added, just wanted to check in with Hayana how close it is with the one that Holly is driving. I know that we brought up this topic with Hayana earlier, about that would be nice to have a little of a book club between ourselves, but I'll leave this item to Hayana to localize when she's back with us next time. So I'll just move it to the next meeting. And I guess, Mike, over to you.
Yeah, so technically it's my last day on this stage group. So I just wanted to thank all of you for being a wonderful team and being fantastic to work with. Juan, I know we haven't worked together much, but the few times we have, it's been great. You're a fantastic designer, and glad I got to work with you. Lori,
Likewise.
Thank you, Juan. Lori, you've been obviously great in the research side of things. I think you got me over that hump of I was so not wanting to do research, but I really appreciate you holding my hand and getting me through that and get me involved in the process. You've been great. And Jackie, I appreciate you, but we're still working together, so you get no thank you.
Yeah, it's like, you don't get to tell me goodbye. Don't be a lame ass. You don't get to tell me that.
And then Dimitri, I know Dimitri and Hai aren't on here, but hopefully they'll watch it. Dimitri was great when I first started. Worked with him a lot in Verify, and he was great, but also he's made me feel so much comfortable leaving this team knowing that it is going to be in great hands. So I think he'll do great things. And then Hayana, Ayana's been she was my onboarding buddy. She really like got me into GitLab and showed me the ropes, and has been just a fantastic partner and design buddy and just everything along the way. So really appreciate her. And then Nadia, you know, she's been a fantastic manager. I figured out how to say this best. She's made me a better designer, and she's made this team stronger and more cohesive. So to me, like as a manager, that's your job, and you've done it well. So thank you to all. Not that I'm going away, like I'm not dying. I will be around. I will still be at GitLab. I still am participating in a lot of the issues as Dimitri ramps up. So you will still see me. And if you have any questions, like, you know, feel free to reach out and ping me. I am a Slack message or a ping in GitLab away. So, you know, I'm not going far. I'll still be around if you have questions. Please don't hesitate.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, I know that we have talked with you already about that, but yeah, I think it was amazing having you on the team. And yeah, as I said, for me, I felt personally like I learned from you some stuff. And yeah, it's sad to let you go. However, I would be curious to see how you'll be following your passion in the new team. And hey, we're not letting you go far. I hope we're gonna stay in a very close collaboration, because that's what we planned for. And yeah, thanks for all of the amazing work that you've done for the release, for the progressive delivery, for the release management, and for CI/CD in general. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, on this somewhat sad note, any other topics? Anything that anyone wants to mention?
Well, as always, thank you for letting me be like this creepy product manager that just sits on this meeting and helps and listens. I feel really weird. I love it, but I just thank you guys.
Hey, for us, it's amazing. You're like our representative of the product side, which is such a big part of the UX. So you're always welcome. It's yeah, you are actually putting yourself in the place where you have to answer all of the questions for the PM. So we're just happy with that.
And the fact that I hate being wrong is even better, because then I'm just going to go back to the product and be like, we got to change it. We already committed to this.
All right, well, thanks everyone for the time. Hey, Mike, as I said, you're always welcome to these meetings. So yeah, I won't remove you from the invite in any way. Yeah, thanks a lot, everyone, and enjoy the weekend soon. Stay safe. Juan, take care.
Yeah, for sure. Bye.
Bye.